JB here. Hope everyone's doing outstanding. Tuesday, May 27, 9:02 a.m. Talk quick about the market. Some names I'm looking at go from there. Futures pointing to a higher open after yesterday's, last week's worst week since Liberation Day. Some of it again self-inflicted. I called it like a vacuum week. There wasn't much in the way of news or catalyst, and then that vacuum was filled with all that the discussion stories around Japan and their debt, and then the yield spiking, Japan 30-year yield hitting all-time highs, and then how's that translate with the U.S. debt, and then you have the U.S. debt becomes a focus now that they're talking about the tax bill. It's funny. It's like all these narratives and stories only come around when the tax bill comes up or there's a debt ceiling, and then no one talks about it again, and then it gets talked about again. So this morning, another great picture in front of I always look at Market Watch as kind of like a I wouldn't a proxy for sentiment or what have you, but the wolf at the door. Why Obama's former budget director is now sounding alarms about debt. It's just, I mean, the debt's been there, and they're some of their cases like, well, there's always been debt issues, but now the debt is large, it's doubled as a percentage of GDP. So at some point it comes the rooster comes to roost, right? I mean, there's no doubt that if it's unsustainable, but how many years is unsustainable? Is it 2 years? Is it 6 months? Is it a year? Is it 20 years? Is it another 30? Who knows what that all looks like? But for now, that kicking the can down the story has been around for a long time now. And if you listen to those articles, and there's articles or headlines every year, every couple months, every decade, every 5 years ago, 10, the same thing was being floated around, you would have just missed thousands of percentage of gains. So, and then when we do pull from the debt situation, you'd probably be a pull, right? You hopefully set up for it, and then we start marching again. So, all right, so that's kind of overall market this week. There is a lot of, well, I wouldn't say a ton of data, but there's a lot of events. You have NVDA earnings probably steals the show tomorrow after the close. I mean, that's the last couple of quarters, every every couple of days leading up into it's like the biggest earnings for NVIDIA in the market. And then, last one was kind of like a sell the news a little bit. I mean, monster beat. And then it's this one again, similar. It's a monster, like an important earnings report that's probably going to have ramifications and repercussions for a lot of names, even, the semis, the chips, the energy names, AI names, all that. And not only probably for sentiment for the market too. So certainly a big one there. We have PC data on Friday. So some more hard data. And also we get Michigan, the final number on Michigan consumer confidence. I don't know how much that's a big deal. And then we also get second read on first quarter GDP. So, uh, hope it would be funny if that's ironic if it upticks in flat or positive, right? But anyway, needless to say, if there's, I always try to look for silver linings. Anything good out of last week is that the markets came out of overbought territory. So now you can make the case that hey, maybe this some consolidation and sets us up to head back into the 590s and possibly 600 on the SPY. It's funny too, like Friday, it's like I hate to say the boy who cried wolf, but when you Friday you saw that 50% tariff on EU by Trump, and then it was like the markets kind of shook it off a little bit, right? And I think more impactful was the Apple news. Tariff on 25% tariff on phones and Apple out produced outside the U.S. So now it's kind of like that now with the deal over the weekend, kind of maybe mitigate some more surprises like that. Um, and then also, it's like today you have Besson talking about, oh, India is going to have, we're going to announce a trade deal, but India is like, like all the way down on the impact for the U.S. trade deals. The U.K. is like all the way down on the list of trade partners. So, got to get some Southeast Asia. That's got to get done, I would think, more important. Same with India, right? All right, so overall market, so 590, I said 586 to 597 last week. Here we are over 586 on the SPY. So maybe we can get some buyers here, close over 590 tomorrow into NVIDIA earnings would be great. And then if they can kind of light a fire under the market, alleviate concerns, especially in regard, well, I mean, we had the DeepSeek situation, but then you also have the tariffs. You also have CapEx spending. A lot of the bearish piece was that the U.S. economy was going into a recession. So if that was the case, you would have saw these mega cap names pull back on their CapEx spending, and has been anything but. So those would be some key things tomorrow. And I think that all plays out. Then maybe we set ourselves up to 600 on a SPY, as crazy as that sounds. And then watching the yields. 30-year yield is not something I usually watch. Usually it's a 10-year. I watch TLT is kind of like a gauge for that. And now it's 30 years. So you want to see the 30-year back under 5. And then I think maybe we can get some tradable setups here. As we head into the end of earnings season, right? So all right, so that's kind of overall markets. Now individual names. Monster week for GameStop, despite the worst week since the start of April for markets. GameStop was up 16% last week, up another 7% on Friday. It becomes one of those FOMO trades, right? I think the higher it goes, the higher the probability that there'll be some kind of FOMO. It's not really a short squeeze candidate per se anymore, but to me, it's like one of those names that people they look at and you see the premiums on the calls. It's like, wow, calls all the way up to 100, 90, 70, $80 strikes. I did the premiums last week when you start looking at some of the further out strikes. But you start looking at October. The October 55 is at $3.40. That's $20 out of money. So you're talking like a 65% gain. So, and then you look, even the June strikes, the June 100s are 63 by 67. So you say $67 out of the money with however many days, 24 days to expiration. I mean, it's like almost a triple. Just so there's two sides to that. One is probably sell some of my calls to cover costs. They're close to 100% now, and then maybe get a couple spec calls into July. But the issue is the premiums are expensive, so I wouldn't even call them spec calls, right? And typically, I'm trying to get further out of money to pay less, and it's not the case. So I might just lock the Junes and then kind of go and wait and see mode. If it starts to break over 34, I think it's 34.72 is the 2025 high. If it breaks that, I'll look to get some further out strikes there on GameStop. And then, yeah, take a look at the chart, right? So that's start of 2025, and then big pull all the way down to the 20s, and had the announcement, the earnings, and the rest is history. Some other names, and I guess the good thing with Friday, I wasn't holding many positions. So VKTX still have my strikes for the data. I'm not going to add or sell. I'll just continue to hold those. Of course, I would like to have an opportunity to close some out to cover costs. I'll wait if it gets over 100%. If I get that chance, I'll do that. Otherwise, I'll just hold those into data. Solar Edge up another 11% on Friday. It's just I'm just going to hold my freebie June strikes. I'm not going to add anything. It's just been, it is at its 200-day moving average. You start looking at the chart, and I'm like, wow, this maybe it starts to head off back over $20. If it does, that'll be great. Still have time on my calls, but I'm not going to add anything else. Other names I'm watching this week, and I was watching DELL last week, and it traded, I think it was 110.79 was the low and 116 was the high for the entire week. So that's kind of not the trading range that usually means profits on the call side or put side. So this week they report earnings Thursday after the close. So you also have NVDA as a possible help in adding some premium. So I might look to get some spec calls, maybe some 130s. Those look interesting on a risk reward basis. And then hope for a little melt up here today and tomorrow, close them out to cover costs and ride the rest. That'd be kind of the plan there. So don't be surprised if I add some DELL. I love DELL. I think it's a great story. I always have. It just, I mean, it was 145 at the end of last year. It doesn't mean that's where it goes, but that's only a couple, well, not only, but yeah, like 4 or 5 months ago. Other names, MDB. Don't be surprised if I had some spec calls there as well. They have earnings June 4th. Also, I mean, the snow earnings last week with Monster beating Rays and MDB pretty much flat last week. So, still like this one. And not only that, it's the premiums are rich on it, especially as it heads to earnings. Even if it only uptakes a couple bucks, the premiums are going to go up on the calls. So that'd be the plan there. And then RH and W back on watch here. I mean, RH is $50 off, $50 plus off its, I would call it the China-US agreement news, right? So I've just remarkable stuff. Has to, well, I wouldn't say has to, but I think it's a nice bounce opportunity to market find some footing here today. And just same with Wayfair. And the difference between Wayfair and RH is Wayfair reported earnings, and they were great earnings. And the stock has fallen from the 40s all the way down. Is it 35 and change? Where it hit 34.46 on Friday, closed at is it 36.20? But another name I'll be watching. And I put some other names on the watch list. Cigna, Humana are two names that I keep looking at as possible bounce plays. So watching that. Yeah, XYZ, right? An upgrade this morning. That's another name. Their earnings were so bad, I kind of took it off the watch list just because, but they have a lot of different moving parts, and one of them is the crypto side, right? So, and so they got upgrade this morning, so definitely helping XYZ push higher. Anyway, that's it, folks. Let's have a great day. I'll be back. Rock and roll.